I think the ridiculousness of this and the tabloids that you are quoting and referencing are insane. And this has been something that I've refuted for years, and I continue to do that.
So it's
what I would tell you is when in regards to what you're doing,
we can move on. I'm not going to belabor it. If
this is what you do.
Hold on,
Socialist,
I'm not doing anything.
Liberal left is you go off and you attack conservative women, and you say that we're either stupid or we're sluts.
All right, so listen.
And that's what you do.
Yesterday, Richard, reclaiming my time, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, reclaiming my time. You were asked by Richard Blumenthal yesterday. You were asked by Richard Blumenthal yesterday if Corey was involved in approving contracts. You said no. Do you want to correct that?
I appreciate the gentleman yielding back, and I'm going to yield back. It's been a long day. Secretary, we appreciate you being here. It's next. The gentleman from Florida is recognized for 5 minutes.
Before I go, I just have a bunch of UC requests, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman may proceed. It's going to be as long as the previous one.
You seem a little exhausted.
No, not at all. I just I think we're setting records like Mr. Biggs and now the gentleman from California. You're gonna go for the record?
If I'm being honest, I threw out 50 of them.
God bless you. Let's go. So let's get started.
All right. A Vox article, the mess that Kristi Noem made.
Without objection.
Times article, Noem's spending rule causes delays at Homeland Security.
Without objection.
Politico, vote to overhaul FEMA canceled after leaked report.
Without objection.
ProPublica, Kristi Noem misled Congress about top aide's role at DHS.
Without objection.
The Hill, Trump approval rating on immigration at record low.
Without objection.
Wall Street Journal, pilot fired over Kristi Noem's missing blanket.
Without objection.
CNN article, sources describe how Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem's Gucci bag was stolen under her chair.
Without objection.
New York Times, late night is distracted by Kristi Noem's oversized hats. That one's my favorite. And a Times article, some Republicans join calls for DHS Secretary Kristi Noem to step down.
Without objection.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate your indulgence. Before I begin, first let me say to the families that are still here, I am very sorry for your loss. I watched parents in my hometown of Parkland bury their kids after the shooting at my high school at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, and I can't tell you that it was an out-of-body experience, and there's nothing like burying a child. So I am deeply sorry for your loss. Madam Secretary, welcome. Good afternoon. Thomas Massey mentioned Ron DeSantis' response during COVID. Well, you're looking at the guy who ran that response. I was the Director of Emergency Management for the state of Florida. For a Republican governor, I worked with the Trump FEMA administration during the Category 5 Hurricane Michael recovery. That Trump's FEMA was great. We got expedited reimbursement, a program that you got rid of or threatened to get rid of. And the Panhandle had one of the greatest responses after that Category 5 storm. The President said he wanted to reform FEMA, but that's not what you did. You've basically destroyed the agency. Largest FEMA backlog in the history of FEMA. My state of Florida is owed $2.5 billion. You have delayed the FEMA disaster declarations even when the applicants meet FEMA's statutory threshold under the Stafford Act. You want states to do more, yet you want to cut the EMPG program, which grants them funding to build capacity. Your office was involved in discussions of moving FEMA to Texas. You created a rule of anything over $100,000 has to come to your desk, a rule that has slowed down FEMA reimbursement, FEMA response. We have empty regional offices. You have done the opposite of what President Trump wanted to accomplish, which was to speed up the process. Your policies have made the department slower. I didn't think it was possible to make FEMA more bureaucratic, but boy, you have exceeded all my expectations. In the Texas floods, you didn't put the urban search and rescue crews on the road for 72 hours. Days later, the FEMA urban search and rescue chief resigned in protest. You hired 2 people as the administrator with no FEMA experience. We're on our 3rd FEMA administrator in 14 months. Never in the history of the department has that ever happened. The president took presidential action to create the FEMA Council. I supported it. You opposed the FEMA Council. You delayed its beginning. The report has still not come out. The White House canceled your last council meeting and has held up the release of the report. But surprise, I have it. I have it. I want to thank the former FEMA employees that you fired who gave this to me. This report's never been seen in public before, okay? But this is it. This was the report. It was 122 pages, the original draft report. You and Corey Lewandowski then took the report and made it 23 pages. You cut out all the stuff that was put in by governors who had been through disasters, emergency management directors, FEMA experts, national security experts. You cut it all out. It's all gone. That's why the report's not been released. It's sitting in the White House trying to figure out this mess that you created. So instead of getting the recommendations we need, now we have nothing. You've called Corey Lewandowski a special government employee. I understand what government means. I understand what employee means, okay? But I don't know what makes him special. Now, I want to give you an opportunity to answer on the record to Ms. Camlager-Dove's question. I know you said it's garbage, and it may be, but I really think you need to say the word no into the record so that you can clear that up.
I think the ridiculousness of this and the tabloids that you are quoting and referencing are insane. And this has been
So that's a no?
something that I've refuted
Is
for
that a no?
years, and I continue to do that.
So it's a
What I
no.
would tell you is
We
when
can
in
move on.
regards
Hold
to
on.
what you're
Madam Secretary,
doing,
we can move on. I'm not going to belabor it. If it's
this is what you do.
Hold on.
The
I'm not doing anything.
Liberal left
Okay.
is you go off and you attack conservative women, and you say that we're either stupid
I haven't
or
said
we're
anything.
sluts.
All right, so listen.
And that's what you do.
Yesterday,
And I will tell
Richard,
you, sir,
yes, reclaiming
I will
my
tell
time,
you,
Mr.
sir,
Chairman.
I
Mr.
am
Chairman,
neither of
reclaiming my
those.
time.
I
You
am
were asked
neither
by
of
Richard
those.
Blumenthal
This is from
yesterday.
the playbook
You were asked
out of
by
the
Richard
Democratic
Blumenthal
Party.
yesterday if Corey was involved in approving contracts. You said no. Do you want to correct that?
What I would say is that he has an advisor to the Department of Homeland Security, has no
Madam Secretary,
decision-making
do you want to correct
authority.
it, yes or no? You don't want to correct
no
it? Fine.
decision-making authority,
hold
no
on.
role in
Not a
contracting.
problem. According to one of the female administrators that you fired, there is nothing, including contracts, that is brought to you that he hasn't reviewed. In fact, a significant amount of DHS internal routing documents has his signature on it above deputy secretaries. Okay? That former female administrator wasn't fired by you, the secretary. He was fired by Corey. It was Corey that called him into your office. It was Corey that made him to submit to a polygraph test. The $100,000 spending rule that you created that comes to your desk, you're not even sitting at your desk. It's Corey who's sitting there. ISIS said the Republicans should be happy at the job that you're doing. Really? You're looking at the person who single-handedly took the president's signature core issue, immigration, the issue that got him elected from 59% to 39%. 200 miles of border walls being held up by you. They had to bring in Tom Homan, pull out of Minnesota. I think the country needs a national divorce from you on biblical grounds. I mean, if Donald Trump was still apprentice Trump, he would look at you and he would realize you're the weakest cabinet member and he would fire you. And if the president said to you that only way DHS could reopen is if you resigned, I hope you would take him up on it. Now, I want to end on a happy note, Mr. Chairman, real quickly. The president gave all sorts of stuff out during the State of the Union. I don't want you to leave. I got you a new Coast Guard blankie, the one you lost. Okay, so this is for you. You don't leave empty-handed when you come to judiciary. Thank you, Mr.
Time,
Chairman.
the gentleman has expired. The gentleman from Missouri, from New York, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Noem, about 3 weeks ago, you stood at a press conference and said, and I quote here, "When it gets to Election Day, we've been proactive to make sure we have the right people voting, electing the right leaders to lead this country." We all know what you mean and meant by the right people voting to elect the right leaders, but I want to narrow in on a different part of it. What proactive measures have you taken to make sure that the right people vote for the right leaders?
The job of the Department of Homeland Security is to secure our critical infrastructure, and elections are deemed by statute in law
I understand
as
that.
critical
That's
infrastructure.
long
Well, no, it
before.
is.
What proactive measures
So what
have
that
you
means
taken?
is that we go forward and identify vulnerabilities that may exist in that system. And then how that applies to elections is talking with states who run elections, identify and help them see how they can possibly be
I understand.
compromised.
Yes, CISA
and then
is
we
supposed
offer,
to do that.
we
But
offer
let's
mitigation.
discuss, if we don't mind, just to reclaim my time because I want to move forward, some of the other possibilities that have been floated for how you will take or might take proactive measures to, quote unquote, make sure that the right people vote and elect the right leaders. Yesterday in the Senate hearing, you were asked a couple times about whether you would or would not station immigration agents at polling sites. A couple of times you said you had no plans to do so. Is that still your testimony?
That is, I have no plans.
Okay,
no
so we all
reasons.
know that no plans today can turn into full plans tomorrow, so it doesn't answer the question. And you're still, am I right, unwilling to say that you will not send DHS agents to polling places. Is that correct?
I'm not certain why you and the Democrat Party are so concerned that that would actually happen. That must mean that you're indicating people would be showing up at the polls to vote illegally, or that you would
that's
want
interesting.
illegal
Yes.
aliens to
Okay,
show
so
up and
let's
vote.
talk about that because this is
that
the
what you
big
think will
voter
happen?
fraud theory, right?
No, it's.
You're
I'm
aware
wondering
of the
what you're
Heritage
concerned
Foundation,
about.
right?
Because I have not
Are
recommended.
you aware of the Heritage Foundation?
Yes, I am, but I have not
Okay,
recommended.
so the Heritage Foundation, correct me if I'm wrong, is a right-wing think tank, created, drafted Project 2025, and it's been on a crusade to convince the American people that voter fraud by undocumented immigrants is a big deal. You know what the problem is? Is that you never talk about any actual evidence. And in fact, the Heritage Foundation's own information, its own data, says that in the 32 years from 1992 to 2024, out of 2 billion votes cast, 10 undocumented immigrants were found to have committed voter fraud. 10 out of 2 billion. Does that sound like a significant problem to you, that your answer about why you might put immigration
I never
agents
once
is
said
because
that I
there's
might
voter
put
fraud?
individuals there. And I would think that if you have one
So you don't
person
think that
voting
voter fraud is a
improperly
problem?
in election,
So is it your testimony you don't think that voter fraud is a problem now?
I didn't say that. I said I have no.
Do you have
plans.
any evidence ever, any data,
There are illegal
anything?
immigrants that have voted in elections.
Yeah, they're
before
10.
That has happened.
They're 10.
And you
Do
think
you
they
have
should-
evidence more of that? The
So are
last 30
you
years.
arguing that they should be able to vote? Is that your argument today?
No, Madam Secretary.
Well, wouldn't you
I'm
want to
arguing
fix
that
any
it doesn't
fraud program?
ever materially impact an election, and yet
We've had
you
elections
like to,
in
with
this
your
country.
snarky attitude, throw back that we want undocumented immigrants to vote, which is absolute bogus. In reality, you want to create an excuse to terrorize our polling places. Not only that, are you familiar with this proposed executive order, 17 pages, that's been circulating?
I am not. What is it on?
It is a proposed executive order on establishing the security, integrity, and transparency of elections. And in it, it would propose that the president declare a national emergency, use executive authority to seize voting machines, and ban mail-in ballots. You've not seen this at all?
I have not read that, and I have not had those conversations with anyone at the White House.
You've not had any conversations with anyone at the White House. That's good to know. If you were asked to do any of those things, do you believe you have the constitutional authority to do that?
We are looking at the vulnerabilities to elections,
That's not my
making
question.
recommendations to states.
Do you
on what they
think
can
you have
do
the
to make sure they have
constitutional
secure
authority
elections.
to seize voting machines, to seize voter rolls, to prohibit mail-in ballots? Do you believe you have that constitutional
I've not
authority?
done an analysis on that, so I would not be able to speak as an
You're the
expert to that.
secretary of the department that is in charge of maintaining election security. You don't know what your authority is or is not?
My authority is to identify vulnerabilities and to recommend
Well, it would be
mitigation
helpful in
measures.
Time of
executing
the
that authority
gentleman.
if you knew what your authority was.
Time of the
I do
gentleman.
know
I yield
what my
back.
authority is.